Well, hello, everyone. And everyone this time will be mostly people who watch this in terms of the recorded version of this is Islands of Sanity in a Mad World, a long form course provided by a little organization on the interwebs called Living Resilience. And I am Dean Walker, the founder of Living Resilience. And this is one of two sessions that will be happening today, which is June 21st, Saturday. And these sessions, these two Saturdays a month and two sessions on each of these Saturdays occur on the first and third Saturdays. And this long form course, this Islands of Sanity in a Mad World, this is originally designed to go from September 2024 through September 2025. My sense is that it will continue in some form or another, about the way it is, because it seems like it's a makeable amount of meetings and so far a makeable amount of course material for each month. And it's the way it's structured now seems to allow people to come in newly midstream, even months into this year, because all of these sessions are recorded and all of the course materials for them each month is there to be reviewed if you'd like. So that's a little bit about the form of what y'all are looking at now in this recording. And hi to Richard. It's good to see you. Good to be with you again. We, of course, spend some time together on Thursday mornings
Right.
in a deep dive experiential practice group called Community of Practice here in Living Resilience. And I'm really excited because this is actually kind of an interface between the two. Richard, what you and I, almost alone at this point, there will be others with recordings, but what we're both experiencing is here in a slightly lighter form, meaning
Yeah.
our time together has been extensive, months of doing the community of practice, a bit more relatedness, a bit more depth. The ups are more up and the downs are more down, and there's a bit more real, like if we were training for a marathon, that's where we're really getting our most impressive workout, I would say.
Hmm.
And here in Islands of Sanity in a Mad World, there can be a number of people who've been here for years, and there can be people who are brand new, and
Right.
it can be a time when virtually nobody shows up in terms of the live Zoom sessions. So again, thank you all for listening to this record on the if you're on the recording. I'm doing my best to just set a context for what you're stepping into. If you're brand new, if this is your first time watching a recording, hopefully you've got a sense of this. And the last thing I'll say, which maybe should have been the first, is the elevator pitch, if you will, for this living resilience work, and for that matter, the work of the Poetry of Predicament podcast, which is a YouTube channel. All of this work has been done for about 10 years now and been created to be in service to the collapse aware and collapse acceptant communities. People who have one way or another kind of bumped their face into, oh my gosh, this is really happening. Whether and it's very different for different people. For some people, it's climate change. They hear about that and they just one day they hear it enough and something cracks open for them and they realize this is really serious. And it's really having an impact on on my anxiety level or my depression level, or I just can't seem to talk to any of my own loved ones, my own relatives, my own spouse. We're on a very different page. You get the idea. And hopefully you folks who are watching the recording are kind of checking your own reality. Where would you put yourself on the continuum of collapse aware or collapse acceptant And we won't be going into too much detail about what the definition of collapse is, or the different gradations of where you position yourself on the spectrum. That's really the work of the coursework of this Islands of Sanity course. Going month by month, you get just a little gentle, ever increasing amount of clarity and distinctions about what is going on here. And if we're talking about collapse, how might we define it? How might we make it clearer, what it is that we mean when we say the word collapse? And one way I would start that definition is to say that we're talking about human-caused collapse of both Earth and human systems. So that's, for me, that's how I start out that conversation. And in doing that, in wanting to support these couple of communities in the world, people who are grappling with these issues, I tend to call this work the inner work of collapse. And there's a lot of inner work to be done. It's speaking from my own personal experience and working with many, many people
Oh yeah.
on these issues. And Richard, I know you've done the same from your own personal practice as a therapist a while back, and now in your extensive writing for Medium and many other platforms about these very issues. So you're about as current as anybody I can imagine talking with or sharing these times with. So I've said a lot,
Hmm.
and I meant it again, just as setting a context for anyone who's new listening to these recordings. And is anything sparked for you to just say hello and present yourself at this kind of first touch-in level? Richard, anything you want to say?
Not really. Not at the
Okay,
moment.
that's fine. I'm ready to keep on moving. And because
Yeah.
what I'd very much like to do is attach ourselves to where we were last time we got together in this Saturday environment. And that's for the first Saturday in June of 2025. This is the third one that we're talking in right now.
Okay.
And in that first one, I had brought a set of qualities that a well-known podcaster these days named Nate Hagens and his great simplification podcast. He's come up with 10 qualities, 10 human qualities that could change the future. And what I noticed in that, and those recordings are available for folks to be watching. If you are interested in joining up with us, either free or in a paid way, in our online community space, that link is available in the show notes in this video that you're watching right now. And what you'll do is then once you sign up, you can go right into the courses area and open up Islands of Sanity in a Mad World. We're in month 10 of that course, and we've had to adjust this course like no other time. I've been in the training and facilitation world for decades, and I have never had this much radical shift, complete renovation, complete retooling of a course ever. And about on my fourth one right now. And so, what I'm using this Nate's list is as a threshold, a way for us to have a shared language about what is it to be a part of a circle, people sitting together and being willing to do the inner work of collapse. And Nate's list inspired me because he's, I think, spelling out his ideas about a toolkit or a shared language that we could sit in that circle with, and we could have our focus be on some of these qualities. And mine would probably be different than yours, Richard, but we could so easily sit in the same circle and support one another in what's important to me and what are the qualities that I need to be cultivating.
Sure.
And equally, I could be sitting in circle supporting you. So I think what I'm going to do is just share screen for a moment. And I'm going to put Nate's list up
Okay. Hmm.
just for a brief reminder. Okay. Are you able to see that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So, and you, I guess you can still hear me. That's a good thing. And so
Sure.
here's what we were working with last time. And I'm going to actually slide ahead for a moment and tell people the what I found to be the punchline last time after the two sessions that we spent together, you and myself and a couple other folks. Richard, it was obvious to me that none of us was really that interested in going item by item through Nate's list. Even though we played a little bit of his brief video about it and we heard his
Right.
descriptions and so on, there were none of us that were really that locked in, like, wow, that resonates with me. I really want to talk about those first four or, something like that. It was a kind of a, well, okay, that's a nice thing for Nate. And each of us had, I think, very, very interesting and important like directions we wanted to go in our own exploration together. So I will also put a link to the videos for last Saturday's sessions for anybody who would like to review that, who hasn't seen that kind of recording here yet. So those will be all those links I've been talking about. They're just all waiting for you down in the show notes. So you're good. Now, uh, what we're going to do is just talk a bit. Actually, I'd like to just say them, and I'll then come back to us being on the screen, and I'll put them into the chat for us. And I just want to go, just give it a couple of minutes due of what seems to be of value. If you scan it, Richard, are there two or three that really stand out? Like, yeah, I think that's worthy of keeping, and any that really don't, for whatever reason. And perhaps I could do the same for a couple of minutes. And then I'd like to shift gears into more of what we started last Saturday, which was the really collaboration and looking in a very different way in the inside of a different experience. I know that I bring uh, quite a bit more attention on the fascist intrusion of government here in the USA because for me it's an energetic explosion. It's already been energetically violent in the USA, really for the entire history of the USA, but it's been more and more intensifying in the past 20 years, and even a steeper curve, of course, in these past 10. Um, so, Richard, are you sparked to say anything as you just look back, remember what you can about what you heard Nate say, and just scan that list and see if anything jumps out as something, yeah, I would include something like that, or no, I would not include that. Anything you'd like to say?
Uh, well, yeah. I mean, no, it's a very interesting list, and I think every single thing has, a lot of a lot of validity. Um, I mean, certain ones speak more to me right now than other ones. I mean, I think last time we ended up talking quite a bit about the post-tragic mindset because that's where I keep getting stuck, and I'm not really there yet. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm more in the tragic mindset at this point. So the post-tragic mindset is kind of intriguing and attractive, um, and other ones that I think systems thinking and wide boundary thinking is a really good one. That's really important. Um, And then this idea of restraint is important. I think I brought up my objection to his using that word because I think we could find a better word for it because a lot of people have negative connotations attached to restraint, and that's not what he's talking about. I mean, he's talking about self-discipline and a certain amount of self-control, and also not getting caught up in all the lures of our consumer society. And that's I don't know if I'd call that restraint or I mean, it's one word for it, but I don't think it's the best word for it, I guess. Um, that seems real important. And of course, emergence and play and joy are really crucial. They're real important. Those are the ones that jump out at me the most.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I hear you. Um, there's definitely a big part of self-care, which is his item that he calls item zero.
Yeah,
And I think you'll see in just a moment, I've grouped mine because of your suggestion last Saturday. I I actually just lumped my quality suggested qualities list into a smaller number of items.
yeah,
And self-care could be the title for one of them,
mm,
one of the four that I've got going on, and which includes grounding, which is just really a practice within self-care. And the post-tragic mindset, I really love that you just tell a bold truth about that for in your experience. I'm always unnerved when I hear people say, "Yeah, well, I've done my grieving about climate change, and about collapse. I've done my grieving, so I'm done with that, and I'm now moving on, and I feel like I'm getting on
huh,
with life." And I don't judge them about it, but it's so different than my experience, which is that the
yeah,
grief is a profoundly uh, important and elemental part of my being a human being. And it is not something like I get a cold and then I take care of myself for a few days and then I get rid of the cold.
yeah,
It's it can be a bone rattling and quite long lasting experience, and it doesn't have to be. It can also be something that moves through my system fairly quickly. But there is something more systemic and something more fluid that can cycle through, like the cycle of, I guess, water going through a swimming pool pump or something. I can feel waves from time to time with my relationship with the ocean, for instance, and my concern for the collapse that we are bringing to the ocean. And my grief has been decades long with that. And it is not disabling, but I think it's not disabling because I do my best to stay current with that. And we can talk more about that later. Um, networked, I think networked is a small practice item that I don't hold nearly important enough to put it prominently in this list, maybe in a sub list somewhere later.
yeah, yeah. I agree with that.
And co-regulation, I think, is absolutely a part of things. And I would put that into interconnected or the focus on relationship. And again, I guess I'll
Yeah,
just whip through this quicker and I'll get to my little four cornerstones, and I hope it'll make sense then
sure.
what I'm doing. Systems thinking or wide boundary thinking, and I put that into a reconnection with the web of life. We are so disconnected from the earth and from the web of life, and what are the actual, I don't like using the word, but the laws of the earth and
Right.
how life happens and what's needed to make it happen, air and water,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so on. And last again, emergence and play and joy is really about a way of sense making in our world for emergence, so that we allow something truly new and wholesome to come through our system, to come through our bodies and our speaking and our thinking. And play and joy is just, again, seems like self-care, seems like co-regulation to me. So that's, I think, a good review. I appreciate what your reflections were, Richard, and I appreciated a chance to just give it some feedback. And really, props to Nate Hagens for putting out the list. And he's so prolific, and he's got so much, brilliance in his way of integrating so many topics. So again, hats off to him. And I know that his list is not mine, but it has certainly sparked me to uh, really open up this collaborative effort that I hope will go on for at least a few weeks, if not a couple of months, to really come up with something that can be functional, that we could create our own body of work, if you will, about it.
Okay, before you get into your own list, I wanted to say something about the grieving
Yes, please.
as,
Sure.
as the grieving aspect of this work.
Absolutely.
And it really occurs to me, well, like people who engage in healing work or therapy or teaching or anything like that, on some level, we all have this desire to, change the world, right? I mean, some part of us wants to help people change their own lives and heal from, all this trauma and all that. And I think a lot of the grieving for me has to do with like kind of giving up on that dream in a way. And I hate that because it's like I'm well aware at this point that, like 99% of people on the planet or more just, I don't know how to put it. They're just enmeshed in these current systems. They can't see beyond them in most ways, and they're just trapped in these systems. And very few of them really want to change. And then of the few that want to change, only a small percentage of that small percentage actually do grow and heal and change. So, I mean, we've touched on this quite a few times, but I keep coming back to it because it's like a big part of this tragic mindset to me, and that is, giving up on the idea that humanity is going to suddenly grow up or change or mature and change our viewpoints on things and change the way we deal with nature and reality. It's not going to happen. It's like we're not changing, we're not growing up, at least not fast enough, and that is like, the pain of that is very intense for me. And that's where, that's where a lot of my grief comes from, I think, because I mean, I really, in the 60s and 70s and 80s and even into the 90s, I really wanted to believe that humanity was going through this major transformation and, we were really going through this incredible awakening and we were going to save the planet and all these wonderful things were happening. And then, over the last 20 or 30 years, it became real apparent that no, those things aren't really happening. I mean, a small group might be waking up and all that, but the vast majority are not. So, and we're still stuck in the same destructive patterns and they're just accelerating. So that, it's like the pain of giving up on, I feel like I've had to give up on humanity as a whole, like as the mass of humanity I've had to basically give up on, but I still very much believe in individual healing and transformation, like we've talked about. So that is, I mean, the pain of that is, and then combine that with the pain of the actual destruction of the natural world, like the collapse of all these ecological systems and all these species being, extincted. Um, I mean, yeah, the grieving is really, really intense, and I don't see how anybody can just do it once and be done with it, because it's like this, we're stuck in this long, ongoing process of collapse. It's like, of course, more and more grief's going to come up at different times.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I wanted to say about that. That's major.
Yeah, it is. I so appreciate you saying that. And, obviously I'm on basically identical page, all the way down to what you were just reflecting about you know, the dubious nature of someone who says, "Oh yeah, I've grieved about the collapse of civilization. I'm pretty good on that, and so I'm moving on to working on my permaculture garden." It's like, oh
Right.
shit. Okay. Uh, but yeah, and I think the only thing that I would add, Richard, because I know I've put out some kind of hints at what my next video or podcast presentations are going to be about, and it's more or less the cultural, political, human relational aspect of what it is to be a person alive today, especially in the USA. And I would say the same thing, not so much about grief, but it includes grief, and it includes fear and also rage.
Yeah.
And that is, we got an authoritarian, we got a fascist dictatorship going on in the USA.
Yeah.
It's taken a whopping 3 months to just get the pedal all the way to the metal so far, and we'll see how much further they're going to go.
I know. I know.
So, yeah, this inner work of collapse is no small deal.
No,
Yeah,
far from it.
yeah. So, yeah,
Can I mention one other thing? I mean, I'm always ready with new ideas, right? Or responses, but um, in relation to this idea of like the post-tragic mindset, uh, okay, if we make the assumption, which I was just talking about, that 99% of humanity is not going to wake up, is not going to change course, is not going to do anything different in time to avoid all these different collapses. I'm really starting to wonder you know, if it isn't like a sane thing to do, a smart thing to do, to just kind of move on from, I hate to say this, it sounds so weird, move on from humanity and like just focus on what I can do in a little group, maybe grow more vegetables or,
yes,
try to become more self-sufficient or, you know, an eye towards some kind of sane survival through all of this crap.
yep,
Um, and I don't know. I mean, I'm writing all these articles, and undoubtedly, the intention behind, all these articles is to help people wake up and get what's going on, and maybe choose something different. Uh,
yeah,
but I don't even know where I'm going with this. But I hate the idea of giving up on humanity, and yet at the same time, it might be the most intelligent way to move forward.
yeah.
It's so weird. I don't know. I don't know where to go with that.
Well, let's keep that thread. Please keep
Yeah,
that thought and keep that thread, because I'd like you to give me some feedback about my suggested smaller than Nate's list.
yeah, yeah, for
And
sure.
I'm right there with you in terms of like it's a conundrum that
Yeah,
there's a continuum, like from complete as complete as a person can, basically just disengage,
yeah.
just not give a darn. If I can use some unusually clean language for me anyway. um,
Right.
and that could be just living my life, going to work, going to my little 9 to 5 job, coming home, getting the groceries, cooking dinner, watching some TV, drinking a beer, whatever it is, and just living life, and that's the way it goes. And it's what I've discovered over these years of offering this work is it's way above my pay grade to have any judgment about what anybody chooses to do.
Yeah,
Literally anyone, uh, in these times.
yeah,
I do have judgments about some of the really, really stinky players. People like Exxon Mobil executives
Yeah,
who have known for 40 years with the best
right.
data on the planet
Yeah.
exactly what's going on.
Yep. And they hit it all or, denounced it all or
All right.
propagandized all of it. And yeah, I know all that. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
So
Yeah.
there are some stinky ass people, and I
Ugh.
can judge them, and I can even get ragey about them. And I've got some process work that I've done and continue to do to keep that as off gassed as possible. But
Uh,
I think that there's a real important balance to be struck in that neighborhood that you're describing for us. That
right.
neighborhood of I am seeing less and less ability to make any kind of a difference at the level of humanity. So where can I reposition myself so that I can live a good life and feel good about myself
Yeah.
and feel good about the people I'm hanging out with or creating with or whatever it is? It's a
Yeah.
great,
That's a good way to
great
put it.
question. So let's talk a little bit about this stuff, and I'm gonna put this up on the screen for just a moment as well, because the
Right.
folks watching the recording can't see what I put in the
Mhm.
chat. So I'm just gonna really quick put it up there, and then perhaps you, if you are watching this on the screen, oh people, you can do a screenshot of the page I'm about to put up for you. Okay, so this is what Richard and I are looking at in our chat. And it's what got us into this predicament. We've disconnected from all the sources of meaning and relationship in human life. That's been my bold proclamation of what I've seen since uh,
Yep.
about 1975-ish, when I really got not only collapse aware, but started to really grapple with being collapse acceptant, and which was hard work for a teenager with no real adult support
Yeah.
that conversation. And so if we just draw that thread from back in 1975 to where it is now, we could look at how might that idea of reconnecting some essential elements in our body and in our experience and in the world that we are in and that we create around us. How can we reconnect? And my little buzz phrase for it has been reconnection with self, others, earth, and soul.
Yeah.
Self, others, earth, and soul. That's four items, and that's easy to remember, and that's worked for me for a long time. And of course, each of those has a lot of little mini lists within it. But it's again something that's workable, something that's that even with my feeble mind, I can remember those four items. This list is now changed to include the idea of sense making. And that's a number of different parts of the human experience that we are now absolutely saturated in all the time. The controlled narrative that both corporations and, excuse me, governments have been imposing on us and saturating us in since birth, and also sense making in terms of things as extraordinary as AI and the whole tech industry globally, and how
Yeah.
this will be the biggest change that humanity's ever seen. And we've seen some big ones. And AI promises to outpace anything we've seen up till now. And with the Earth and the web of life, we've already just spoken for a few moments about that. And, it's easy to include, and hopefully we can include not just the Earth and systems of Earth and what we can actually touch and relate to and see, but the web of life, meaning there appear to be some attributes of living in this universe, in this world, on this planet that are not so palpable and are part of a philosophical or a spiritual backdrop that we might include in that web of life, in those words, web of
Mhm.
life.
Yeah.
And I would also put that into the next one and the last one here, soul, which can include things like meaning and purpose and love and grief. And grief not as something like a bad case of dysentery that we want to get rid of, but grief as the other side of the coin of this infinite love that is available to us at all
Mhm.
times as well. I think it's an absolutely integral part of the human experience. And unfortunately, particularly in the USA, we have a very anemic and even kind of pathetic and sickly version of grief that we call normal. So
Yeah.
I hope that folks watching the recording have made a screenshot for themselves because I'm going to bring us back to our lovely faces with each other. And Richard, I've said a lot in my brief little disclosure of my short list, similar perhaps to Nate Hagen's list. Um, Anything stick out for you there? Anything that you don't understand or you don't like or you do like or you resonate with?
No, I like it. I kind of seems to be quite, a distillation of some of the core purposes you had in mind when you, started this website and the groups and everything,
Yeah.
resilience website. Um, I want to mention one thing related to AI and the development of that, and that is I've been doing some little research recently, or seen articles like in the newspaper and magazines and stuff. Um, and what's really alarming to me is like the amount of delusional thinking around what it's going to take to implement AI all over the world is really frightening because what I've been reading about is like the vast increase in electrical power
Hmm.
supply that it's going to require.
Hmm.
And also, apparently, these data centers use up huge amounts of water.
Yes.
And like here in Texas, we're already in a drought. We're experiencing, dwindling water supplies because of the growing population and, growing water use. And then we got this idiotic plan, which is already in place and it's already being built out in a lot of ways to create all these humongous data centers all over the place, all over Texas, all over the country in various areas. And apparently these data centers, they're going to be used for AI and also for a lot of what I consider to be really idiotic concerns or idiotic ideas like crypto mining and data mining and all this stuff. It's like basically mining the internet for information about all of us that they can use to sell us stuff or to enslave us in some way, whatever.
Hmm.
But anyway, the thing that's really alarming to me is like here in Texas, they're predicting just in 5 years, like they're predicting that a 75% increase in power demand
Hmm.
statewide, mainly because of these data centers that are being built out,
Right.
plus population growth and people using more and more electricity and all of that. And if you think about it, just on a practical level, that's insane. This is at the same time they're trying to cut back on green energy, like because these, right-wing types want to get rid of anything liberal or anything green or anything, remotely
Hmm.
environmentally friendly. So they want to cut back on green energy and wind energy and all these things. At the same time, they're talking about increasing the power supply in the grid by 75%, you know, by 2030. I mean, to me, that is utterly delusional thinking. And it's also delusional because, we can't afford to be, decimating the planet with more and more emissions. And that's what they're talking about, building more and more gas-fired power plants and even nuclear plants and things like that, and using less. either controlling or using less of the alternative or green energy. So, I mean, and this is all in the planning. It's either being planned right now or it's already being implemented in a lot of places. So, I mean, to me, that's just a really good example of the completely out of touch reality these people are living in. I mean, wow, we can't afford to create all these new power plants, and we can't afford to use up all this water in this way, and yet they're planning and going ahead and doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
WTF,
Yeah. Exactly.
Jesus. So,
Exactly.
I mean, that, applies under the category of sense making. Is like, how the hell do we make sense out of that?
It's right at the center of why I even use those terms. Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's like, wow,
Yeah.
it boggles my mind.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you got all the impacts of AI, which might have a few good ones, but it will have plenty of bad ones too.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. It just blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my.
Yeah. Phew. So thank you for that feedback. I appreciate it. It's a first cut at this list.
Yeah.
What I'm thinking, how this is, however it lands, I'm really hoping for this is going out to all the people watching this recording as well. For me, this is a very important request or invitation that I'm putting out to you all. Uh, I can't imagine a more important thing to be doing right now than to be coming up with this kind of list for ourselves, no matter who we are and no matter where you put yourself on this spectrum of collapse acceptance and so on. If you aren't putting together some kind of list that starts with what matters most to me in this world right now, what matters most to me, and have a little journal and my
Hmm.
if you're anything like me, that list will change and those responses will change over time. And those really are the drivers for what we do in our day and what we do in our relationships and how we presence ourselves in the world. And so I'm curious, would you put other things on this list in terms of the headings for these cornerstones, if you will, which is what I consider these things that we've just talked about a little bit here on my list? Um, I can't imagine a more important thing to be doing is to be finding people that you would like to sit in a circle with. One way or another, you get together for a potluck dinner every 2 weeks on a Sunday and have food and enjoy each other. And then spend at least a few minutes talking about what matters most to you and how's it going and how are your practices going, practices
Hmm.
that can expand your ability to be present in the face of ever growing stressors. We're going to be going deeper into that in this second session, which we're only about 11 minutes away from the end of this first part of
Right.
2 sessions today.
Yep.
And I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. I noticed that I've been kind of racing a little bit, almost like I've had too much coffee or something. And I've had a little caffeine this morning, but it's not about that. It's that um, I would just say it a little bit differently than you said it earlier, Richard, so well. This it's a conundrum time. It's like how do
Yeah.
we position ourselves so that we can actually feel like we have agency in our lives?
Hmm. Yeah.
This dictatorial environment, this fascist environment, this deeply polarized environment in which we're literally killing one another.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh my God, the tension and the potential for disconnection or dissociation and so on, and loneliness and feeling, desperate, like what's going to happen to my job when AI comes on in 2 years? That kind of thing. These issues just seem to be coming like a set of waves in a storm. And the way I'd like to wrap up this first session is to go to a place that you and I in our community of practice, Richard, we go there a lot, is we intentionally kind of slow down our do you do your practice, I do mine, to slow ourselves down, to remember a center that we each have in our own experience. We get there in our own way, but we can do that together. And when we do that together, we it can be called generating an atmosphere of coherence, little bubble of coherence, little island of coherence. And that's really what these Islands of Sanity in a Mad World course sessions are about. It's not just to think good thoughts or put our heads together and come up with a better list and so on. Those are good things.
Yeah.
But to come from whatever we bring with us in our week, in our couple of weeks since we've seen each other last, to come together and generate a sense of coherence
Yeah.
that is that is just waiting for us to shift our state of being, to shift intentionally our breathing, our thinking, the pace with which we're speaking. So I find myself doing that, and I'm loving doing that. And I want to especially speak to people who are new to this environment. And you might be watching this as the first thing from Living Resilience that you've seen. And I want to orient you to what I believe is something quite different than so much of what's going on in our world, the world which I affectionately call the fire hose to the face of too much media, too much content, too much stimulation 24/7 that we're
Well,
all facing.
too much insane shit.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we've been looking so far today, we've been kind of reviewing this idea of, okay, what if we had a shared language and a kind of a bullet point list that we could just remind ourselves these are some practices we might want to take on for ourselves and then bring them into circle with each other whenever we meet. And that's a good thing. And I just want to remind or say newly to folks who are new here and remind the rest of us that really what makes this work worth doing for me is to orient it as soul work that can happen when we slow down and we descend from our heads and from the busyness and the
Yeah.
fire hose.
You okay?
I am.
All right.
Yeah, there you go. To to slow down, to descend our attention into the lower elements of our body where the soul rests. Oftentimes it's described as being in the pelvic bowl, kind of way down in our body, and where our center, if you're
Hmm.
in martial arts, where the center is. And I would like to just end this particular session with I think, a lovely orientation from a alternative healing. He's a double board certified regular doctor, but he's spent his adult life being in alternative well-being and health and medical environments. This guy named Dr. Zach Bush, and he just has a lovely uh, reminder for us of this slowing down. And
Before we
yeah,
before you go there, I want
yeah.
to throw something into the pot here quickly.
Oh,
Can I do
yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, Going along with, the kind of healing work or soul work that you're talking about, this keeps coming to my mind, so I feel like I need to put it in there or put it in the pot, like I said. And that is the idea of transmutation. That somehow I feel like we're taking like all the shit that we're faced with, or what we need to do is take all the shit and all the garbage that we're
Yeah.
constantly faced with and that we're all processing and actually transmute it into something healing, transmute it into something healthy or better, or I don't know what the word would be. It's like that alchemical idea of transmuting lead into gold.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think that's really important, and I want to throw that in there for future discussion, maybe.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, that's a perfect fit in that. Seems like that's a good fit in that basket that includes coherence and self-regulation and
Right.
co-regulation
Yeah.
to be able to transmute that that nasty shit of which there is plenty.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, if you will, just hang with me for this brief video, and then we'll shift to exiting for our break.
Yep.
You would think, I think, at the logical level, like, okay, if I was told that I have 3 weeks to live, I would run around and tell all the people I love how much I love them. I want to spend every waking minute with the people that I love. And I would definitely want to like watch my favorite movie, and I want to have like my favorite meal every day. And I never saw that happen. Oddly, I watched people spend more and more time in silence and listening as soon as they got diagnosed. And that's where the forgiveness happened, and that's where the spontaneous remissions happened, but it's also where the peaceful letting go of the body happened, where you suddenly slow down, and instead of going to, check on whatever your to-do list was, you actually watch the steam rising off your tea for an hour. And I would watch somebody who was about to die spend a whole lifetime of silence. They spend more time witnessing the beauty around them and feeling it inside their body in those 3 weeks than they had in the previous 80 years. It's a warning to us that we're missing the secret of life by racing around, by rushing around, by missing the beauty of reality. The people that I've seen live very long and happy lives have an overwhelming curiosity for the beauty around them. And they are constantly looking for that next experience of witnessing beauty. And they stay very youthful until the end. And I was blessed with my great-grandmother and her daughter, my grandmother, were two women that just showed me that in space. They knew how to be alone in nature. They knew how to be alone at the dinner table. They were both, my great-grandmother was single for the last 52 years of her life or something like that. Her husband died of a heart attack when he was quite young. She never remarried, and she was the happiest, most joyful person I ever knew. Incredibly socially active, but only because she knew how to be in peace for living in her own house for 50 years, wake up on her own, walk out into her own garden, cut the flowers, make a little bouquet, make the same cup of tea, and appreciate that every day. And so you will live long and healthy when you slow down and witness the beauty.
Hmm.
All
Very
right.
cool.
So that really says it in such a gorgeous way, such a humble, simple way
Yeah.
that life is so miraculous and so full of beauty.
Yep.
You know, we've been talking about it for a few weeks now, Richard, in our community of practice, we've been talking about having the two hands, if you will, full of life. And that includes the horrors, the absolute horrors that we're
Yeah.
encountering now at a scale that humans have never had to encounter before.
Hmm.
And at the same moment, we have this hand full and beyond
Yeah.
of this ineffable beauty,
Right.
this extraordinary deep inspiration that is truly beyond, it's beyond my feeble words. And so we're using those two handfuls at the same time
Yeah.
to fuel our conversation, to fuel our collaborative work of how can we make ourselves more present to life, even when times are unbelievably challenging, like beyond anything I've ever had to hold before.
Yeah. Right.
So, Richard, thank you for taking this time. Am I going to see you in 30 minutes when we get back from a break?
Yep. It's
All
possible. I
right.
might be possible. I might be a couple of minutes late because I need to help myself and Darlene with lunch. So
That's very fine. I'll see you when I see you. And
yeah, but
for those
I'll
who
be
are on the
there.
recording, you're now on to tape two, session two. Alrighty, see you in a few
Good.
minutes.
Yep. See you then.